Hey guys, so I've just reached 500 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you very much. As promised, here is the first free tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of these beautiful, mesmerizing, spiraling little wind winders. So I hang these up in my Willow weaving workshop. They catch the wind and spiral around and create this quite, beautiful, mesmerizing effect. So, to make one of these, we're going to need 14 identical sticks in terms of length and diameter. We're going to create 2 individual spirals and then combine them together to make the finished article. So yeah, I'm using prepared old French. It's been harvested last year, fully dried out and then re-soaked to make it workable and malleable again. This is actually willow that I prepared over a month ago, and because it's been so cold, it's still relatively workable. I'm hoping not to have too many cracks and snaps today, but we'll see how we get on. I'm going to take 7 of the weavers to start with. They're all going to be in my left hand clasped butt end together. I'm going to use another weaver to bind them together at the butt end. We're going to need a dummy stick. So any short length little offcut will do. Here we go, perfect. Little dummy stick. That is going to go in my clasp and join the others like so. So we start with the butt ends and then there's a little dummy stick incorporated in that clasp too. I'm going to take the butt end of this weaver, which is going to be used to bind the 7 together, and incorporate that also within my clasp. Using my thumbnail, I'm going to kink that weaver down towards me at 90 degrees, and then we're going to wrap around and bind those 7 together as tightly as we can. Seeing as we're working with 7 sticks, let's go for 7 wraps. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to remove the dummy stick and then threading the tip of the binding weaver up through the space that dummy stick occupied, pulling it nice and tight, creating that initial bind to get us started. So it looks a little bit like this. You can see the butt end of the binder there, the bind itself, and then the tip that I've just pulled through. So we can remove that tip, we don't need that anymore. We can remove the butt end as well, like so. Okay, and we'll start weaving. So to initiate this weave, we're going to have the weavers in my left hand and we're going to pull up 2 of them at 90 degrees, like so, kinking them just beneath the bind. I'm going to take the weaver that's at the back behind the set of 2 and bring it over the top and then down towards me. Okay, so it looks a little bit like this at the moment. I'm going to pull another weaver up at 90 degrees from the bundle on the left, and again pulling up that weaver that's from the back over and kinking it like so, like this. And we're going to repeat that motion over and over again, selecting a weaver from the left, bringing it up at 90 degrees, and from the set of 2 that are now up at 90, I'm going to pull the one at the back up over and to join in my clasp in my left hand. I'm going to continue this motion over and over again until I've incorporated all of the weavers from that initial bind. So there we go, so you can see this pattern starting to form already. Now every time I pick up a new weaver, it's going to be this weaver on the left. It's going to come up to join at 90 degrees like this, and then it's always the back one that's going to come up and over, back down in front. It's a very repetitive action. You need quite strong thumbs, especially when working with material this size. I'm using 5-foot old French willows, and I'm always picking up the left-hand weaver, bringing it up to meet the second at 90 degrees, and then it's always the one from the back coming up, over, down to the front. So my aim is to make 2 absolutely identical little spirals like this, and then to create the finished article we will be wrapping these around a long straight stick. I'll show you that when we get there. But I really enjoy this process, although it's quite tough on the hands. It's quite satisfying to see this pattern, this spiral being birthed from my hand with each move I make. You see every move I make creates the length of the spiral, and I'm not actually doing anything special to create the spiral pattern. The weave itself creates that pattern. Again, another quite satisfying aspect of this weave is, although I'm only really doing 2 moves, selecting a weaver from the left, pulling it up, and then weaving one over. Had a little snap there we go, because the willow's old and started to dry out. That's what I anticipated. If we were using perfectly prepared willow, fresh out of the blanket, perhaps only mellowed for a day or 2, then that wouldn't happen. That's fine. It's okay, guys, don't worry. A little bit of snap is purely aesthetic. As I get close to the bottom, the top end is becoming heavier and heavier. So what I tend to do is balance this on something, or just perhaps rest it on my knee, like so, and then continue the weaving pattern until I've reached the desired length. Once I feel as if I'm pretty much there in terms of the length that I want to achieve, I'll grab the dummy stick once again and create a little bind. So let's do that now. Where has the dummy stick gone? There it is. So again, you can see the pattern that's been formed already. This is where I'm deciding to finish. I've got a few inches left of the tips of the weavers. So I'm going to incorporate the dummy stick within that clasp, and then use a weaver tip to bind around the bottom. This bind is going to be temporary. We're going to undo this again in a little while to create the double helix pattern in the finished product. I'm now going to remove the dummy stick, like so, and then thread that tip up through the space it occupied. And again, just to create that temporary bind whilst I go ahead and make the second one. Then once I've got 2 identical spirals like this, I'm going to show you what to do next. Okay, so here we have the 2 identical spirals. The next step is to wrap these around a relatively thick and as straight as possible stick. So this is some of last year's hybrid willow, a nice big chunky one. I'm going to go starting from the butt ends. I'm going to start to wrap the first of the spirals around the big chunky stick. Okay, there's one wrapped around. I'm going to take the second spiral. I'm going to do the exact same thing. And to start with, they're going to sit side by side. But with a little bit of jiggery pokery, I can twist these and position them where I want them to sit around the big stick to create that kind of beautiful helter-skelter pattern. The next step is to bind these at the bottom with another piece of willow, and then what I'm going to do is undo these temporary binds on top, wrap these tips around the stick as best as I can, and then bind those also. Then the final thing to do will be to screw in one of these little screw hooks. The focus is going to change for me. There we go. One of these little hooks with a little screw on the bottom, and attach that to something like a branch in a tree or my workshop, and it will spiral around beautifully. So there's not really a special way or an easy way to do this. It can be quite tricky. I'm going to undo the temporary binds and then wrap those around the big chunky central stick. There you go, there's those binds undone. And then best I can wrap those remaining weavers around the tip of this big chunky stick. See, bearing in mind that I want the 2 spirals to sit in a particular position within that stick too. So this is going to take a little bit of, I say, jiggery pokery, a little bit of positioning of those tips, and try and wrap up that big central stick like this so you can barely even see it. And then I'm going to put a dummy stick in, bind it off with another weaver, and then I'll do the same on the bottom and make sure they're all sitting where I want them to sit, and I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so I undid the binds from both ends of the spirals and then rebound them around the central stick. Now all that's left to do is to insert my little screw hook. It's going to go into the tip end of the project, because I find that with the bulk of the weight at the bottom helps to spiral and spin around in the wind. So I'm going to stick a little bit of twine on this and then go and hang it out in the garden. I have in the past used fishing line to suspend this, and it does spin a lot faster, but over time the fishing line tends to spin and spin and spin and build up so much tension that it eventually snaps. So garden twine, although it spins a little slower, it does last a lot longer. So here we go, let's go outside and hang it up. So there you have it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you want to see more content like this, then please don't forget to subscribe. I'll be uploading more free tutorials to this YouTube channel, as well as my usual content on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. I'll see you in the next one. See you later.